Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Half-Life podcast video. All right, let's go ahead and let's do another one here, mainly because I'm having a lot of fun once again revisiting these videos for this playlist, and we're almost wrapping up all of the fantastic monsters featured within the first game. This one is pretty much, I guess you could call it the next to the last set of monsters within the game itself. They're almost like an homage to the actual boss at the very end of the game, a preview, if you could call them that, when it comes to facing them and the nastiness associated with their attacks. I remember still to this day, whenever I first came across them at a level, not really thinking too much of them at first, but clearly they definitely present a big danger to the player once you realize the potential associated with their attacks. But you're looking at a picture of them now. Obviously, if you played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're known as the alien controllers. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info associated with it, plus the underlying theme that they could actually be more in the lines of the masters tied to some of the slaves within the monster races. I'll explain more of that here in just a minute. So what are these alien controllers? Well, they are creatures that are found towards the very end of the game, particularly at the Zen level. So basically, after you've escaped from Black Mesa, you're teleported over to Zen. That's when they're encountered, and they're encountered throughout several parts of that area. And again, as I mentioned a minute ago, very little impression of that first, especially considering the size associated with them. But once you see them in action and once they do their devastating attacks, then they definitely become a force to consider. First, let's talk about their actual physical characteristics. Number one is this: they are absolutely linked to the big bad, to the boss at the end, the Nylymph. In other words, they have a very similar trait of physical characteristics. For starters, they have a very large bulbous head. Whatever this head is made of, it's very, very big, much larger than the rest of the body itself. And on top of that, it splits open. It splits open just like the Nylymph's head does as well. And within it, there seems to be this weird triangular shape. Who knows what that is? It could be a spike, it could be a cone, and what it does essentially for the alien controllers, who knows as well. It may be part of their brain, or it may allow them to shoot energy beams or do something else as far as teleportation. But those are the closest links associated with them. The rest of them are still pretty close, and they are as follows. They have very tiny bodies compared to the massive head that's on them. Those arms and those legs are much smaller and much thinner, as you're seeing here. Some of them, in fact, are even like they have longer arms than the legs themselves, and they use this along with what looks to be a mishmash of mechanical parts, almost like if it's something along the lines of technology meeting bodies and then forming together at the same time. That seems to be right there along with the alien controllers. They even have a third arm. This one, though, is considered very, very weak, if you could call it that. It almost seems to be vestigial, but it's there in the center of its chest, once again mimicking the Nylymph when it comes to that similar characteristic. And then other things that it has as well is it has the same type of colorization associated with the Nylymph, and then they also have the ability to levitate. This, though, where things differ is this: their levitation, at least for the alien controllers, seems to be 100% through a form of telekinesis or some kind of psychokinetic powers. Who knows? But something is causing them to levitate without needing a mechanical part or mechanical seat like the Nylymph has. That's one of the key distinctions that the big boss has at the end, is you see it's almost like on a floating seat. This case, though, the alien controllers do not have that. It could be because of their size, because they're much smaller, their mass is much less, their weight is much less. Maybe they don't have to have that as well, and they can use whatever form of stuff that's coming out of their head in terms of psychokinetic powers and so on to be able to do so and float about freely. And then on top of that, the other difference is the creature itself has no voices. So one of the freakiest things, a little preview when I finally talk about the big bad, the nine lift later on in another video, is you hear his voice in your head, like he's screaming the name of Freeman and he's saying all these threats left and right. That was pretty creepy the first time I remember playing the game. Well, the alien controllers don't have that. They don't have any voices. They have nothing in terms of a physical voice or a voice that goes inside your mind. Closest that they have is these screeches. Those screeches are still pretty freaky. They're considered low and high-pitched screams, and they particularly do it when they find you. So if you're trying to hide somewhere and then they're floating about, and then all of a sudden they know your area, that's when they start doing that screech. It's an alarm, probably to bring others to their area, probably also to scare you, to intimidate you, which definitely does that trick. And then that's when you know that you're within its presence. Now let's talk about the attacks associated with the alien controller. So the biggest attack that it has is it shoots this type of electrical energy. It almost looks like ball lightning would in real life. It's more of a yellowish, orangish color, and the way it comes from their hands, it denotes that it's generating it from scratch. So it's generating it from its body and then shooting it out. And those are very devastating because there's two forms associated with it. One is if it comes from the hand, it shoots downward. It may hit you, it may not, but when it does cause some damage. The other one, though, is very bad. This is the one that comes straight from its head. Maybe that little spike within its head does that trick. But either way, though, this ball lightning is larger and more powerful, and then it also has that devastating homing ability, so it can actually start tracking you like a missile would. So you could be hiding somewhere, and I remember trying out for the first time thinking that I was safe. No, this thing started following me, and unless I recalled incorrectly, I believe it could also go through things. Like it could go through, let's say, a little boulder that I was standing beside or a little area of a wall. I remember still getting damage associated with those ball lightnings, those larger ones coming from the alien controller. So maybe that's the case. Maybe it can go through inanimate objects, and that's essentially what causes it to be very, very bad. The other thing that it uses to attack is its very strong ability to fly. The way it levitates and it moves about, it makes it very hard to hit. You're wasting a lot of ammo trying to hit it, and it does take a little bit more than usual than compared to some of the other enemies throughout the game. And so you're wasting that, and then you finally hit it. You think you're safe, but there's more of them. That's the other part of their devastating attack. There's multitudes of them that are featured throughout Zen. It was almost like the game was saving some of the best for last. And so when that happens, then there's a large portion of them there within the same area. That's when things get really, really bad for the player. Now let's talk about the theme associated with the alien controller and it being more along the masters. And what I mean is this: they're only found really in Zen. And if you wanted to narrow it even more, they're only found whenever you have a large area of vortigans. The vortigans within the games, only later on do you really realize that they are more like enslaved. Like you see those chains, if you could call it that, wrapped around their necks, their arms and legs, and it's almost like it's hindering them or keeping them in place. Well, these things are floating about in those same areas, and the vortigans apparently get agitated whenever they see any of these alien controllers around. It gives you the impression that the vortigans are again enslaved by these creatures and those alien controllers, if you could even call them guards, prison guards, something along those lines. They're there floating about, making sure that everything is running on time, making sure that nobody is out of place. Whatever the vortigans are doing in terms of work, they better be doing it, or these alien controllers are going to be doing some bad things towards them, and there's nothing that the vortigans can do. That's the impression that the game very nicely gives. Like there's details, there's rich details when you think about it. It passes by the first time because you're just trying to get out alive and shooting things left and right. But these little details do come out afterward, and it makes the game so much more rich when it comes to the quality associated with the production of the game. Very interesting stuff. Let me know if you guys believe in that too. Are the vortigans basically there almost like prisoners, and then these alien controllers are their guards, and then they're enslaving them right there? Let me know if that's the case as well. But that's pretty much it. Nothing else really to showcase associated with these alien controllers. They're found within that level. And then that game, once it ends, the presumed idea is that Zen gets destroyed, and that in turn destroys the alien controller. They do kind of make a little cameo appearance on Opposing Force. There's that part there where the main character, Adrian Shepard, comes across that part where he sees Gordon Freeman teleport over to Zen, and when that happens, that's the same area from the first game where you start to encounter the alien controllers coming about. So he these controllers kind of make an appearance again, a cameo of sorts within that Opposing Force game, but then that's pretty much it. There's nothing else really that comes about afterward, but otherwise still a very memorable set of monsters. They're almost like the lieutenants, the second to the next bad guy, the big bad guy associated with the game. Very memorable look, very memorable actions, screeches as well. Let me know what you guys think. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.